So would you call this a modern form of postmodern demonology?
Yes.
Would you
Yes.
say it's for you? You quote Jacques Vallée a lot in your book. Would you say it's more spiritual than psychological or physical?
It's not psychological. It is, I would say it's psychic rather than spiritual, but for me, psychic, it doesn't simply mean subjective. The psyche, the subjective psyche exists in an environment of objective psychic realities, which is something that Carl Jung, of course, was talking about with the collective unconscious. Just like the physical body exists in an environment of objective physical objects outside itself. So it's psychic, but it's not psychological. These are beings who inhabit what the Sufis would call the alam al-mithal or the alam al-khayal, the intermediary plane, the world of imagination, which is not just, as I say, subjective. It is an actual world with actual beings and entities that are beyond you, but you relate to them through, the psychic level of your own makeup. Spiritual level is higher than that. But as for their being physical, they have the power, apparently, of temporary materialization. They can appear on radar. They can leave behind physical traces. But they can't stay here for very long because apparently it requires a lot of energy for them to materialize, and they're like fish out of water. They don't really belong here, but they can manifest in order to get us to believe in them or pay attention to them, and then they go up in smoke again. So what they are in Muslim terms, and this is, the Sufis would generally agree with this, are the beings called the jinn. Now, the jinn are essentially the Arab version of the fairies. The fairies are not angels, and they're not all demons, although some of them are pretty dangerous and mischievous. But they're, according to Islam, the race of the jinn have free will like human beings. According to Muslims, angels don't have free will. They're like just like rays of light coming from the sun, and they can't rebel against the sun. Your ray of light can't rebel against the sun that is emanating. So Muslims do not talk about the fall of the angels, but they talk about the jinn, and they say that the Muslim Satan is called Iblis, and Iblis was a jinn who had been admitted among the ranks of the angels. And what happened is Allah created the human form in the other world before it was sent to earth, created Adam. And he told Adam all the names of all things and the names of all the angels. And then he said, okay, Adam, tell the angels their names, because they didn't know their own names. This is showing that the human form has a certain precedence over even the angelic. That's why Christ incarnated as a human being. He didn't just manifest as an angel. He became a human being, because the human beings, we don't know what we are. We don't know our capacity and what is required of us, particularly now as religion is becoming weakened and starting to fade away in collective consciousness. We forget what a human being is. It's apparently only religion can tell us in explicit terms what we are. We think we're just machines, or strange biological entities created by chance. And so why shouldn't we transhumanize ourselves or do some other strange, weird thing? Because, what's a human being anyway? We don't know what a human being is. According to the Quran, the human being bears the trust, the amana, which means it's our responsibility to incarnate, if you will. That's not a Muslim term, but to be the presence of God, or the eye of God within material reality. That's what we are. We're the center of this whole thing. We think of ourselves as just, basically a throwaway species that didn't work out. And as the poet and singer Leonard Cohen, the great Canadian singer who passed away a few years ago, he said, an ape with angel glands. That's his way of describing our view of what a human being is, an ape with angel glands. We're much more than that. We don't know what a human being is. So anyway, Allah says to Adam, tell the angels their names. And he does so because they don't know their own names. And then he says to all the angels, will bow down to Adam. And the angels, at one point they say that, because he says, I'm going to send this being to be my representative on earth, my vicegerent on earth. And the angels say, I'm sorry to question this. Of course, you must know what you're doing, but do you know what he's going to do, don't you? He's going to shed blood. He's going to do some really dark stuff now. I'm sure you're aware of this. So we're very puzzled as to why you're going to do this. And Allah says to the angels, all he says is, I know something that you don't. That was his whole answer. So he commands the angels to bow down to Adam, and they all do, all except Iblis, who is actually a jinn, not an angel. And he says, far be it from me, a being who's created of smokeless flame, to bow down to, a being created merely of the dust and the sod of the earth, And so Allah says, well, then you can no longer be with us in this higher world. And he says, well, but give me some time. Don't send me to the fire until the end of the world, and give me a chance to test humankind and to see if I can pervert him and pervert us. And Allah says, very well, you have your wish, do your worst. And that's the situation we're in today. So the jinn,
it echoes the book of Job, no?
Well, actually, it's very close to the book of Job, because Iblis is like one of the sons of God, just as Satan is one of the sons of God in Job. So it is a similar thing. It also echoes Norse mythology, because Loki was not actually one of the gods. He was a giant who was admitted to the Aesir, to the company of the gods, but he was actually a giant. And the giants and the Greek Titans and the Hindu Asuras and the jinn are all basically the same class, and the fairies of Western Europe are all the same class of being. There is great variation among them, but they're all the same people. They're not angels. They're not eternal. They live for a very long time. Some Catholic theologians of the Middle Ages called them the Longa Evi, the long-lived ones, although the story of that race never, got very far in Catholic theology, but there were some who talked about it. And so the Muslims say the jinn, some jinn can be Muslim, some jinn, worship Allah, and actually the Quran was sent not just to the human beings, but to the jinn. It's their book too. It's a book sent to enlighten both human beings and jinn. So some of them are Muslims, but others are not. And those who are not are the Satans, the shayateen, essentially demons. So I think the lore of the jinn from Islam is the closest thing we have to a description of what the UFO aliens actually are.